bum, bum. Hey, everybody. Come on in here. Come on in. It's time for Coffee with Scott Adams. Best time of the day. Yeah, every single time. And this will be no exception because I know you're all going to be prepared. Prepared? What do you mean by prepared? Well, I mean, do you have a cup or a mug or a glass? How about a tankard, chalice, or stein, a canteen, jug, or flask, a vessel of any kind? Fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure, the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better. It's called the simultaneous sip. And if you haven't tried it, oh, I feel sorry for you because it's awesome. And it's going to happen right now. Go. Yeah. That was 100% satisfying. 100%. 100%. Well, so you may have noticed that there's no news anymore. Do you remember when I used to get on here and talk about the news? And then the news stopped. There just wasn't any more news. Because the news has always been fake. Meaning that the news organizations, they're the ones who decide what is news. And I guess they've decided that we're not going to have any for a while. We'll just not have any news. Now, of course, there are still stories, but they don't feel important or news-like. And it feels like the entire Biden administration is becoming sort of opaque. I know they're doing stuff, but I don't know what. And when I find out what they're doing, I don't know what context it fits into. Can't tell if it's good or bad. It's just all sort of very non-Trump, boring. But we'll make it interesting. Here's how. Number one, you have to tie every story to Trump. Otherwise, what's the point of even talking? Because Trump brings the interesting part, and apparently nothing else does. Sure, AOC can do her little thing, but she's just sort of female Trump light, if you think about it. So Trump light is no substitute for the real Trump. And so I'm going to work him into a story, forcing it in there. I'm going to force it in there. All right, you ready? This doesn't even have to be about Trump, but I'm going to make it about him, damn it, to make this story a little more interesting. It goes like this. You may have noticed that we no longer have in this country anything like a news industry. It's become fake news. It's become, biased left and right. And that has opened up a gigantic lane right down the middle that's completely available. What is that lane? The lane is, and I talked about this should have been done during the Trump administration, there is no show that lets people who know what they're talking about on a given topic debate each other with the right format so that you as a viewer could learn something. That doesn't exist. Instead, we have the 1-minute pundit yakking at each other. They say their talking points and you don't learn anything. But what if you had an actual half-hour show? Let's just say it was hosted by ex-President Trump. Would you watch it? I don't even have to tell you what the show is, right? As soon as I tell you Trump is the host of the show, well, you're going to turn it on, right? You're going to at least sample it because he's the host of the show. You don't need to know what the show's about. You're already going to watch it. All right? But here's what the show could be about. A half-hour hosted conversation between two sides who maybe have some experts with them so they can refer to get the right information if they need it. And they'll just have a conversation in which the ex-president of the United States calls each side on bullshit. And that's it. That's the show. So it's two experts arguing different sides, and then when one expert says something ridiculous, ex-President Trump says, that's ridiculous. Try again. And it doesn't matter which side was being ridiculous. He could call out his own side for not making a good argument if he thinks there is a good argument. He could call out the other side for not supporting their case. But as long as he crushed both sides, would you watch it? Oh, you'd watch it. Yeah, you'd watch the hell out of that. If he was mean to both sides, that would be the hard part, right? Now, who else could do that? Can you think of anybody who would draw a big audience for political stuff, right? Political stuff is not naturally interesting. Trump could. Trump could get the entire country watching a political show in which just two people argued the two sides and he slammed both of them for being full of shit. You would watch that. Now, what have we learned about the power of the media versus the power of government? Who has more power, your politicians or your news sources? See where I'm going with this? Trump could have more power over the direction of the United States with a TV show because there would be no competition. Nobody else would be trying to give you both sides of any issue. That doesn't exist anywhere in our news universe, right? And the reason it doesn't exist is who in the world could make that interesting? How in the world can you make a debate on some policy interesting? Trump could. Trump could do it easily. He just has to show up and be Trump. And it would be the most interesting thing you ever watched in your life. I saw somebody mention Dershowitz. It wouldn't be a bad idea to also maybe include in the direction of the show let's say a jury. So let's say that you've got a host that's Trump, and he's just being mean to both sides. So he's being basically Simon Cowell on American Idol, but giving both sides a good shot of it. Then the jury does their thing, and the jury decides who made the best argument. So you might put people like Alan Dershowitz would be a perfect example. People who have a history of being able to side with wherever the law and the argument go, even if they happen to be associated with one side, if they have a history of being able to cross boundaries easily, as Dershowitz does, perfect juror. Who else would be a good juror? Me. I'd be a great juror. I should be on that show, in the jury. For not every show, maybe a few episodes or something, but I also have a history of being on whichever side the data indicates, at least in my opinion, indicates I should be. So I don't have a fealty to the left or the right, so I could be a good juror, right? Not the best in the world or anything, but you'd look for people like me to fill that role. Now, I think that would have more impact on the public opinion of policies than anything that's happening now. It would be a gigantic ratings bonanza. It would be impossible to ignore. It would completely control the news headlines every time it happened. And I think Trump would effectively control the country just by being the person who let the arguments be heard for the first time. It'd be the only place you ever heard the arguments. If you're a normal citizen, it's the only time you would hear them. So there it is. It's a gigantic open opportunity for the president to control the direction of the country without breaking any laws, without doing anything but entertaining us and educating us. Why not? Why not? And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure, the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better. It's called the simultaneous sip. Go.